this the other day because I have a client of mine who says that she talks to lots of nice men. These nice men are married and, yeah, they're flirty. They say lots of things like, oh, I wish I could be with you, but I'm married. And I was thinking about this because I've known lots of men like this. They seem to be attracted to women like me and my client. Are they actually nice guys? You know? I don't think they are. I think they're covert. I think they're covert bastards. I think they're covert bad guys. Maybe even as far as a covert narcissist. Where they say, you know, that they're good guys, they're just misunderstood, that their wives don't understand them. And why do they go after women who are compassionate and kind and loving? Maybe a little bit fucked up. Well, because they know that you will be receptive to it. They know that you'll enjoy the attention. They know that you will be happy to give back. And this isn't sexual. I mean, it is, but it isn't. A lot of times this is just flirting, it's just conversation, it's just hellos and how's are you, and they're looking to you for emotional support. And the question is why you're not going to your wife for emotional support. And women do this too, don't get me wrong, I'm just speaking from the perspective of a woman who's had men do this to her. And when I say that, I'm not a victim, fully aware that I'm complicit in the actions that have led to it. And this led me to then thinking about how people create these cycles of trauma in their lives. And it often comes from social conditioning. You know, that we become conditioned to accepting less than what we deserve. And once I began to think about this, I started to look back at a lot of my relationships with people. I'll tell you, one of the worst relationships, well, two of the worst relationships I ever had, were with men that I found very attractive. Because it was like, because I was so attracted to them, they had this power over me. This kind of goes into that pretty privilege thing where people assume that if you're handsome, you're probably a bastard. Because I was so attracted to them, I don't know, gave them an extra layer that I would put up with from them. And I think if you've been somebody that has been an outlier from society in some way, shape or form, you know, whether you grew up ugly, grew up as the fat kid, or, you know, you were bullied, or, you know, thinking about my own situation, I was bullied, I was the fat kid, and never wanted by chaps, boys growing up. And the other woman that I was talking about, the client that I was discussing, she's also in the same situation, was bullied quite badly at school, and it always felt like she was the ugly sister. You know, and I felt like that as well. I felt like the ugly sister. My sister's this blue-eyed, skinny thing. Boys always liked her. But it leads into this kind of social conditioning and complex where we just become grateful for what we're given. You know? And I think that's one of the most dangerous positions to be in for anyone, really, because it leads us into accepting less than what we're worth. And I think that there's people on this planet that use that against you. And for me, I've had it done to me in relationships and in friendships. And now I have the clarity to look at it. It's been only recently that I've made this little assumption. Almost today, actually, something happened to me today where I had a message from somebody and I thought, I don't know why I'm allowing you to speak to me that way. Why do we allow it? You know, there's a very taboo discussion in self-help groups where people don't really want to recognise that you're complicit in your own abuse. And I speak about this for anybody kind of over the age of 18 and in your right faculty. But we allow people to behave in certain ways towards us. And we don't put boundaries in. Even today, a person spoke to me in a sort of way that didn't really sit right with me, and I didn't challenge it. I replied jovially because I thought, I can't be asked with any fallout that may come from that. But rather than having a possible confrontation with somebody else, I'm actually abandoning myself in that moment. I'm saying that my feelings weren't worth the confrontation. And I find this is a very common place for a lot of people to be, particularly when they've experienced lots of trauma. Why do domestic violence victims allow abuse to continue and stay quiet within it, stay complicit within the situation? Well, because being compliant is just easier than the fallout that comes from the confrontation. And I think that we can kind of personally get into these ruts of behavior where we continually do that. And every time we do that, our inner child is just fucking screaming for somebody to step in and save us. And the reason why I talk about the fact that you must recognize that you are not a victim of anybody else but yourself is because when you recognize that it's you that is allowing these behaviors in your life, you can circumvent the whole victim mentality and you can become pretty victorious. You can start to put in boundaries. And it's not always easy. And it's an art. It's not science. Sometimes it's worth putting that boundary in. Other times it's not. Other times you're dealing with somebody who is emotionally immature and volatile, in which case sometimes being complicit or quiet is good, and putting boundaries in ways that doesn't rock the boat can sometimes be a very beneficial thing. But I think it's interesting that our childhoods, our relationships, first few relationships we have, does tend to shape the way that we respond to the world. And it does tend to create these behaviours. I'll give you an instance. Speaking to a woman yesterday, and she said, "We're all together. We're all in this together." That's what she said. We're all in this together. And it was mind-boggling. For me, it was like a remarkable epiphany. And you're probably sitting there thinking, like, what? Well, I've kind of come from a situation in life where nobody's in it with me. I do everything on my own. Everything's a competition. Everything always was a competition. That's what happens when you get raised by narcissists. There's no camaraderie, and there is definitely no group work, And I've spent such a long time doing everything on my own. The thought that I could do things with other people is rather jarring, and not just jarring, but almost mind-boggling. And the thing about it is, if you don't know that you can do something, you never learn to do it. And this is why healing is so hard. This is why you need a mentor to show you the pathway, because unless somebody knows where they've walked, you're walking blind. And for many people who've had childhood abuse or trauma of some form, it's created the paradigm that there is nowhere to move. There is no trust. There is no, we're in this together. There is no self-respect. There's no loving ourselves. There's no boundaries. And so why, when people come out into the world after these abusive situations, they keep replicating the same situation over and over and over? It's almost as if they didn't know that anything else existed. It's a absolute willingness to accept what is, because they're not aware that there could be anything better. And that's devastating. Anyway, garden thoughts. Hope you're all well. Sending you love. Try and enjoy the sun. I'll speak to you soon.